In 1964, a slender convertible glided onto a rotating stage at the New York World's Fair. It wore a galloping pony badge, a long hood, a short rear deck, and a glint of mischief. As the covers came off, not everyone in the automotive world applauded. Across town, executives at General Motors sipped cocktails and scoffed at the newly unveiled Ford Mustang. They called it a chick car, a secretary's toy, and even a fat car in a not-so-kind sense. They chuckled at the idea that this little sporty compact could threaten the Corvette. In their minds, the American sports car crown was secure. Little did they know that this upstart was about to reshape the industry and outsell the venerable Corvette by roughly 10-1 within its first model year. To appreciate why the men in suits felt so safe, one must travel back to the early 1960s. The Detroit Big Three were locked in a horsepower race fueled by cubic inches and chrome. Chevrolet's Corvette had evolved from a timid fiberglass experiment into a muscular machine with fuel-injected small blocks and independent suspension. It was exclusive, expensive, and more of a performance showpiece than an every person's machine. General Motors executives saw it as an image car, not something meant for mass consumption. Salesman turned Vice President Lee Iacocca sensed something in the air. A tidal wave of baby boomers were reaching driving age. Youthful energy, rock and roll, and the desire for freedom hung thick in the culture. Two-car households were becoming common. Iacocca believed there was room between the thunderous performance cars and sensible sedans for a vehicle that would capture youthful dreams without breaking budgets. In secret meetings known as the Fairlane Committee, Iacocca and a handful of trusted engineers sketched the blueprint for a new kind of automobile. Their edicts were simple, yet radical for the time. The car had to seat 4 people so that it could be a daily driver. It had to have bucket seats and a floor shifter to feel sporty. It must not exceed 180 inches in length and must weigh less than 2,500 pounds to keep it nimble. Most importantly, it had to retail for less than $2,500 so that a young teacher or returning soldier could afford it. These requirements were scribbled on a napkin, but they set the tone for everything that followed. Designers scoured their sketch pads. John Najjar, Gail Halderman, and Joe Oros competed internally. Oros's team pitched a concept with a long sculpted hood, muscular flanks, and a short rear deck that gave the illusion of motion while standing still. The design drew inspiration from European GT cars and American hot rods, yet it was unmistakably fresh. Henry Ford II signed off with a grin. The Mustang was born on paper. To save money and time, the engineering team borrowed heavily from existing parts. The Mustang skeleton came from the humble Ford Falcon, a compact economy car. This allowed the new model to share stampings, suspension components, and engines without starting from scratch. Early prototypes were built using Falcon unibodies with new sheet metal. Some at Ford worried that such mix and match engineering would limit performance. Iacocca did not care. He understood that customization would be key. He insisted on an options list longer than any competitor. Buyers could start with a thrifty 170 cubic inch 6-cylinder engine with about 100 horsepower and basic trim. They could also choose the 260 cubic inch or 289 cubic inch small block VS8, some with 4-barrel carburetors and up to 271 horsepower in the high-performance version. Transmissions range from 3-speed manuals to 4-speed top loaders and smooth shifting automatics. Interiors offered vinyl or pony-patterned luxury, full gauges, wood grain trim, and even an optional rally pack tachometer perched on the steering column. Convertible and fastback bodies joined the original notchback coupe. In effect, the Mustang could be a modest runabout, a classy weekend cruiser, or a street bruiser, depending on how a customer ticked the order form. As the April debut approached, Ford's marketing machine sprang into action. The company purchased simultaneous advertising time on the 3 major television networks for an unprecedented blitz. Commercials showed bright-eyed young couples touring the countryside in their sleek new steed. Print ads splashed across magazines promised that you could add any of 80 options to make the Mustang your own. When the car rolled onto the rotating dais at the World's Fair, women in white uniforms answered questions and handed out brochures. News cameras captured crowds 5 and 6 rows deep. Excitement crackled in the air. Across the country, dealerships prepared to open early on launch day. They underestimated demand. Some stores had people camping on sidewalks. On the morning of April 17th, more than 22,000 orders were placed, completely overwhelming Ford's system. Showroom managers wrote deposits on napkins when they ran out of order forms. Within a few weeks, Ford had recorded sales that dwarfed their expectations. The company had hoped to move 100,000 cars in the first year. They sold well over 400,000 by the first anniversary. The millionth Mustang rolled off the assembly line in less than 2.5 years. The sudden success sent shockwaves through Detroit. General Motors executives had dismissed the Mustang as a chick car and a fad. They imagined that the novelty would wear off and that buyers would return to serious machinery. Their own sports car, the Corvette, sold just over 22,000 units in 1964. Ford produced more than 121,000 Mustangs during the half-model year between April and the end of 1964. That means the Mustang outsold the Corvette by roughly a factor of 10, a staggering ratio that humiliated those who had snickered. The Mustang's triumph exposed a blind spot. While the Corvette was a pure two-seat sports car with raw performance, it was expensive and exclusive. The Mustang offered style and speed for the masses, and the masses responded. Early critics latched on to the same features that made the Mustang appealing. Automotive journalists who prided themselves on evaluating horsepower and handling complained that the base model was underpowered and that the car was more style than substance. Some even used the derisive phrase "secretary's car" to describe it. The term "chick car" soon followed. There was a sexist implication that a car appealing to women must not be a serious machine. In some articles, the Mustang was mocked as a fat chick car, implying that its styling made it heavy and slow. Yet within months, those snide comments turned to praise. The high-performance 289 engine allowed the Mustang to sprint to 60 miles per hour in around 7 seconds, respectably quick for the era. When Ford entrusted Carroll Shelby to create a competition version, he at first dismissed the Mustang as a secretary's car and said it would never be a racer. But Shelby, ever the tinkerer, could not resist a challenge. He stripped out weight, tuned the suspension, upgraded brakes, and squeezed even more power from the small block. The resulting Shelby GT350 hammered around tracks and won the Sports Car Club of America B Production Championship. The Secretary's car had become a track monster. Ford's ability to offer racing pedigree while maintaining everyday affordability widened the Mustang's appeal. Teenagers affixed mag wheels and thrush mufflers to create street racers. Middle-aged mothers used them for school runs. Servicemen returning from overseas purchased them to celebrate civilian life. Musicians wrote songs about them. Wilson Pickett's Mustang Sally implored a lover to slow down while he admired her ride. Film producers cast them as symbols of rebellion and cool. Sean Connery drove an early convertible in Goldfinger. Chased by villains in European sedans, a dark green fastback hurtled through San Francisco in Bullitt, piloted by Steve McQueen. Each appearance cemented the car's image as the embodiment of freedom. The Corvette remained a fantasy object, glimpsed at shows and racetracks. The Mustang was everywhere. Inside General Motors, panic set in. Engineers had been working on a sleek two-seat concept car code named XP833, later called the Banshee. John DeLorean, head of Pontiac, believed the Banshee could take on the Mustang and the Corvette simultaneously. Its pointed nose and flowing lines hinted at future Corvettes. But when DeLorean pitched the car to executives, they balked. They feared that a cheaper, sporty Pontiac would cannibalize Corvette sales. Banshee project was shelved, and only a couple of prototypes were ever built. Instead, General Motors scrambled to create a new model to counter the Mustang. It tapped the Chevrolet division to develop the Camaro and allowed Pontiac to build the Firebird using the same F-body platform. These cars debuted in 1966 as 1967 models. By then, the Mustang had a 2.5-year head start and hundreds of thousands of loyal owners. The numbers tell the story. During the 1964.5 production run, Ford produced over 121,000 Mustangs. In 1965, production jumped to more than 559,000 units. In 1966, over 607,000 rolled off the line. Within the first 3 years, more than 1.2 million Mustangs were sold. By comparison, Corvette production stayed under 25,000 cars per year through the mid-1960s. The ratio of Mustangs to Corvettes on American roads was astonishing. The chick car had become the car of the people. Why did General Motors misjudge the market so badly? Part of the answer lies in corporate culture. In the early 1960s, General Motors ruled the market with half of all new car sales. Success bred conservatism. The corporation had divisions for every price point. Chevrolet for entry-level buyers, Pontiac for performance, Oldsmobile for middle-class families, Buick for executives, and Cadillac for luxury. The Corvette had survived early skepticism and become a symbol of engineering prowess. Managers were loath to risk that status. They assumed that a cheaper sporty coupe would cannibalize one of their own brands rather than expand the pie. So when Ford introduced a sporty 4-seat car priced under $3,000, they laughed instead of learning. Meanwhile, Ford's leaner bureaucracy allowed Iacocca to champion a risky idea and bring it to market in record time. Another reason for the Mustang's success was the way it tapped into emerging demographics. The post-war baby boom meant there were millions of teenagers and 20-somethings seeking independence. Suburban expansion created families with driveways that could hold a second vehicle. Women were entering the workforce in larger numbers and wanted cars of their own. Iacocca's team intentionally marketed the Mustang to women as well as men. Advertisements showed secretaries and homemakers smiling behind the wheel. Some at Ford feared this might hurt the car's macho image, but the broader appeal actually strengthened sales. The idea of a car that you could dress up or down to suit your life resonated across gender lines. Indeed, comments like "chick car" inadvertently drew attention to the fact that women could be car enthusiasts too. When men realized that the same little car could be fitted with a high-performance package and beating bigger machines at stoplights, the stigma vanished. The early Mustangs were not perfect. Sharing components with the Falcon meant that the ride could feel floaty and the steering vague when pushed hard. Drum brakes struggled with repeated stops until front discs became available. The solid rear axle hopped on rough surfaces. Quality control was inconsistent in the rush to meet demand. Some early cars rattled and leaked. Yet owners forgave these flaws because of the intangible joy the Mustang delivered. It was smaller than full-size cars, easy to park and maneuver. It was affordable to buy, feed, and insure. It looked like nothing else on the road. With the top down, a driver could feel the wind and hear the gentle burble of a V8 exhaust. The car's shortcomings and refinement almost added to its charm. It felt raw and alive compared to the appliance-like sedans many people drove. Despite gaining size and weight, the Mustang remained recognizable. Not all changes were applauded. Ford executives, emboldened by early success, allowed the Mustang to grow larger and more luxurious. Eugene Bourdonnais, head of styling, later quipped that we started with a secretary's car and ended up with a behemoth. By 1973, the once svelte pony had become a chubby stallion with bloated proportions and dulled performance thanks to emissions regulations. Sales declined as insurance premiums rose and fuel shortages loomed. In response, Ford launched the smaller Mustang II in 1974. Though maligned by some enthusiasts, the Mustang II kept the name alive during the malaise era and attracted buyers seeking economy and style. Through all these evolutions, the legend of the first generation persisted. Stories circulated about young couples driving across the country in their brand new ponies. Car clubs sprouted in college parking lots and small-town garages. Mechanics swapped camshafts and intake manifolds in search of extra horses. Many remember their first kiss in the bucket seat of a '66 convertible, the smell of vinyl mingling with perfume and gasoline. Others recall weekend drag races on rural roads where a high-performance Mustang shocked bigger block competitors. For some, the car represented their first taste of financial independence. The monthly payment fit into a modest salary. For others, it offered a way to rebel from parental expectations without completely abandoning practicality. Each story added to a collective mythology that turned the Mustang into more than a product. It became a cultural touchstone. General Motors eventually learned from its miscalculation. The Camaro and Firebird became formidable pony cars in their own right, winning races and hearts. The Corvette continued to evolve into ever more sophisticated sports cars. Yet the company's initial misreading of the Mustang's market left a lasting lesson. Corporate arrogance can blind leaders to shifts in consumer desire. Dismissing something because it appeals to a group you do not respect is risky. The phrase, "chick car," was intended as an insult, but it revealed more about those who uttered it than about the car. Ford's success showed that inclusivity and adaptability can be powerful business strategies. The Mustang welcomed everyone to the performance party, and the party turned into a movement. By the time the '70s dawned, the Mustang had outsold the Corvette by a huge margin. The ratio of about 10-1 during the first run remains one of the most dramatic upsets in automotive history. General Motors had bet on a pure sports car for affluent enthusiasts. Ford bet on an affordable dream machine for the masses. The results speak for themselves. Today, both cars coexist happily, each fulfilling its niche. Yet when we look back at those early days, we remember how a small group of rebels within Ford turned corporate skepticism into triumph. They listened to the heartbeat of young America and built a car that matched it. They dared to launch a pony in a world of stallions. They endured ridicule and overcame obstacles. Their creation not only outsold the competition, it captured imaginations and never let go. The Mustang story offers more than nostalgia. It is a case study in understanding human aspiration. People do not buy horsepower or cubic inches alone. They buy feelings. The Mustang made drivers feel seen and empowered. It celebrated individuality by offering endless choices. It democratized excitement. In an era when boardrooms were dominated by men, the car's design and marketing quietly acknowledged that women were an important market. In a decade of social upheaval, it provided a unifying symbol of possibility. It showed that a product can succeed when it aligns with broader cultural currents. It also proved that sometimes the best way to compete is not to mimic the leader, but to change the game. Ford did not build a cheaper Corvette. It created a new class entirely. The industry responded not by copying the Corvette, but by building their own pony cars. As we reflect on the phrase "fat chick car" that some used to mock the Mustang, we understand that it was rooted in prejudice. The car was never fat. It was lean and athletic. The label implied that something appealing to women could not be serious. In reality, women's enthusiasm propelled early sales and broadened the car's base. When Carroll Shelby and other tuners extracted race-winning performance from the same platform, the silly insults evaporated. The Mustang taught Detroit that marketing built on exclusion was outdated. Instead of shrinking into a niche, Ford embraced a rainbow of drivers and in doing so, made history. Looking back from the 21st century, the Mustang's debut seems inevitable, but at the time, it was a risky gamble. It required a champion like Lee Iacocca to push against corporate inertia, a design team willing to think beyond existing categories, a manufacturing group creative enough to build a new car from old parts, and a marketing department bold enough to saturate media like never before. It also required the courage to stand firm when rivals laughed. The General Motors executives who derided the Mustang did so from a place of comfort. Their Corvette was a masterpiece, and their market share was dominant. They did not realize that success can breed complacency. The Mustang's success served as a wake-up call. It reminded all car makers that innovation and humility are necessary for survival. Even icons can be disrupted by something small, cheap, and full of heart. As the first production year ended and the sales charts confirmed the upset, the laughter from the General Motors boardroom turned to silence. In its place, there was the hum of drafting tables as designers hurried to sketch the Camaro, the whir of dynos as engineers tested new engines, and the clatter of telephones as marketing teams scrambled to understand youth culture. The Mustang had exposed a generation gap within Detroit leadership. Young engineers identified with the pony car. Older executives needed convincing. Eventually, they embraced the new world and delivered iconic machines of their own. But they never quite reclaimed the first mover advantage. Through every twist of this tale runs a common thread: the power of listening. Lee Iacocca listened to teenagers who wanted a car that felt like a sports car, yet could carry friends. Gail Halderman listened to his wife when she suggested the car's name, inspired by the P-51 fighter plane and a wild horse. Ford listened to women when it chose to advertise in daytime television and to place cars in department store windows. Carroll Shelby listened to the rumble of the small block engine and imagined what it could become. In contrast, General Motors executives listened mostly to their own echo chamber. They measured success in quarterly reports, not in the cheers of kids pressing their faces to showroom glass. The Mustang's triumph is thus a triumph of empathy over arrogance. It serves as a reminder that to build something truly meaningful, one must start by listening. When the anniversary of the Mustang's launch rolled around, Ford celebrated with fanfare. 1 million owners received commemorative keys and gathered at racetracks and fairgrounds. Magazines that had once rolled their eyes at the pony car now published glowing retrospectives. The car that was supposed to be a fad had become a fixture. Its silhouette adorned lunchboxes, t-shirts, and postage stamps. Even those who had laughed at it were forced to admit its impact. The Corvette continued to shine as a world-class sports car, and General Motors fans remained loyal. But the numbers were undeniable. In the mid-1960s, Ford's Little Pony outsold the Corvette by about 10-1. The chick car label faded into history, replaced by one simple truth: the Mustang was a winner. In the decades since, the Mustang has endured ups and downs. It has survived oil crises, economic recessions, and changing tastes. It has been downsized, upsized, turbocharged, supercharged, and electrified. Yet the essence of that 1964.5 car remains. It still evokes freedom, personalization, and fun. It still brings together young and old, men and women, racers and dreamers. It still reminds us that great ideas often come from those willing to challenge conventions. And it still stands as a testament to the moment when General Motors executives laughed and Ford smiled all the way to the bank.